September 23, 1987. Highway 285 cuts through the New Mexico desert like a scar across empty land, connecting small towns that most people drive through without stopping. At 11:47 p.m., Sarah Chen locked the geology lab at the University of New Mexico and walked to her car, a white 1984 Ford Escort with 47,892 miles on the odometer. She had spent 14 hours analyzing rock samples from the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, part of her graduate thesis on mineral composition in volcanic formations. Sarah was methodical, the kind of person who checked her fuel gauge twice and kept detailed logs of her field work. Her Toyota Tercel had broken down the week before, so she borrowed her roommate's Escort for the drive back to her apartment in Albuquerque. The Weather Service had recorded clear skies, winds from the southwest at 8 miles per hour, temperature holding steady at 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Perfect conditions for the 2-hour drive home. She called her boyfriend from the lab phone before leaving, telling him she'd be home by 2 a.m. Her voice was tired but normal. The last entry in her field notebook, written in her precise handwriting, was logged at 11:35 p.m. Sample batch J47 sealed and stored. Preliminary analysis suggests unusual iron oxide concentrations. Follow-up required. At 3:47 a.m., New Mexico State Police Trooper Danny Reeves spotted the white Escort parked on the shoulder of Highway 285, approximately 12 miles north of Roswell. The vehicle sat at mile marker 131, engine running, driver's door hanging open like an unfinished sentence. Headlights carved tunnels through the darkness ahead, illuminating nothing but empty asphalt and scrub brush. Reeves approached with standard caution, his flashlight sweeping the interior. Sarah's purse sat on the passenger seat, wallet intact with $73 in cash and her university ID clearly visible. Her keys dangled from the ignition. A half-empty coffee cup sat in the center console, still warm to the touch. Her geology textbooks were stacked neatly in the back seat exactly as she had arranged them after leaving the lab. The trooper called it in at 3:52 a.m. Unit 47 to dispatch. Located abandoned vehicle, New Mexico plates Charlie Delta 90271. Engine running, no sign of driver. The dispatcher's voice crackled back through radio static, requesting additional units and an EMS response. Within 30 minutes, the scene filled with law enforcement vehicles. Detective Ray Martinez from the state police arrived at 4:18 a.m., finding no evidence of mechanical failure, no skid marks on the pavement, no signs of struggle. The Escort's fuel gauge showed 3/4 full. The odometer had advanced exactly 47 miles from its last recorded reading at the university parking garage. Crime scene technicians photographed everything, dusted for fingerprints, collected fiber samples. Sarah's footprints were clearly visible in the soft sand beside the driver's door, but they stopped abruptly after 3 steps, as if she had simply vanished mid-stride. No other footprints were found within a 50-yard radius of the vehicle. The search began at first light. Helicopters from the Civil Air Patrol swept the desert in expanding circles while ground teams combed through arroyos and rock formations. Search dogs picked up Sarah's scent at the car but lost it within 20 feet. After 72 hours, the official search was called off. Sarah Chen had disappeared without leaving a single clue about where she had gone or why. Her family drove down from Colorado, her mother clutching a photograph of Sarah receiving her bachelor's degree just 2 years earlier. They stood beside the highway where her car had been found, staring at the endless expanse of desert that seemed to swallow sound and hope in equal measure. The only thing her father said to the media was that Sarah wasn't the type to walk away from anything, especially not her research. 3 weeks passed. The case file grew thin with dead-end leads and unanswered questions. Then, on October 14th, the radio in Sarah's impounded Escort began playing again. The mechanic examining the vehicle heard it first, a faint melody drifting from speakers that shouldn't have worked with the ignition off and the battery disconnected. The song was "Take My Breath Away" by Berlin, the same tune that had been playing when Trooper Reeves found the car. But that was impossible. The song was only 3 minutes and 26 seconds long, and it had been playing continuously for 3 weeks. October 14, 1987. James Morrison had been driving the same route for 15 years without so much as a fender bender. His 1986 Peterbilt 359, unit number JM4471, was scheduled to deliver construction materials from El Paso to Denver, a run he completed twice monthly with clockwork precision. Morrison kept meticulous logs, recorded every fuel stop, and maintained radio contact with dispatch every 2 hours per company protocol. At 47 years old, Morrison was what truckers called an Iron Man, someone who could handle the loneliness of long hauls and the pressure of tight delivery schedules. His driving record showed 0 violations in the past decade. His truck was equipped with the latest CB radio, radar detector, and GPS navigation system that his company had installed just 6 months earlier. The Peterbilt's maintenance logs were spotless, with the last inspection completed 4 days before his final run. Morrison's last confirmed position was logged at 1:43 a.m. on October 15, when he checked in with dispatch from mile marker 125 on Highway 285. His voice sounded normal, maybe slightly tired after 11 hours on the road. "This is Big Jim, mile marker 125, all systems green, estimated arrival Denver 0800 hours." The dispatcher acknowledged and logged the transmission in the company records. At 6:15 a.m., a Department of Transportation inspection team found Morrison's Peterbilt parked on the shoulder at mile marker 133, 8 miles north of where he had made his last radio call. The truck sat perfectly positioned in the breakdown lane, hazard lights flashing in steady rhythm. The engine was off, but the ignition key remained in the run position. Morrison's logbook lay open on the passenger seat, his final entry written in the same neat handwriting he had used for years. Mile 125, 0143 hours, fuel 3/4 tank, weather clear. New Mexico State Police Trooper Linda Vasquez arrived at 6:32 a.m. and immediately noticed similarities to the Chen disappearance 3 weeks earlier. The cab showed no signs of struggle or forced entry. Morrison's wallet contained $247 in cash, his commercial driver's license, and a photograph of his 2 daughters. His thermos of coffee was half full and still warm. The truck's CB radio was tuned to channel 19, the standard highway frequency, with the volume set at Morrison's usual level. The cargo remained untouched and properly secured. 18 pallets of concrete blocks, steel rebar, and construction tools were inventoried and found to match the shipping manifest exactly. The trailer's GPS tracking system showed the vehicle had traveled in a straight line along Highway 285 until stopping at mile marker 133 at 2:17 a.m., 34 minutes after Morrison's last radio transmission. Detective Martinez was called to the scene at 7:45 a.m. Standing beside Morrison's truck, he felt an uncomfortable familiarity with the evidence pattern. No footprints led away from the vehicle. No tire tracks indicated another vehicle had stopped. The truck's engine showed no mechanical problems, and the fuel gauge read exactly 3/4 full, matching Morrison's logbook entry. Search teams mobilized within hours, following the same protocols used in the Chen case. Helicopters swept the desert while ground units checked every gulch and rock formation within a 5-mile radius. Morrison's CB radio handle, Big Jim, crackled across trucker frequencies as drivers up and down the interstate spread word about the missing driver. The trucking community rallied, organizing their own search parties and offering rewards for information. By the 3rd day, the similarities between the 2 cases had caught the attention of State Police Command. Detective Martinez submitted a formal request to establish a task force, noting that both disappearances occurred on the same stretch of Highway 285. Both victims vanished between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., and both vehicles were found with engines running or recently shut off. The geographic zone between mile markers 127 and 134 was marked as a potential pattern area. Dr. Amanda Foster, a criminal behavioral analyst from the FBI's Albuquerque field office, was assigned to review both cases. Her preliminary assessment noted the lack of evidence suggesting foul play, the absence of financial or personal motives for voluntary disappearance, and the unusual preservation of personal belongings at both scenes. She recommended installing surveillance equipment along the suspected corridor. On October 19, Morrison's wife Patricia received a call from the trucking company. Her husband's final paycheck would include payment for a delivery he never completed, but the GPS logs showed his truck had somehow traveled 8 miles beyond his last confirmed position. The fuel consumption didn't match the distance traveled, suggesting the truck had been stationary for an extended period before being found. The case file began expanding with witness interviews and background checks that revealed nothing unusual about either victim. Sarah Chen had no history of mental illness, no financial problems, no relationship issues that might prompt her to disappear voluntarily. James Morrison was equally stable, with strong family ties and a pension he was planning to claim in 8 years. Both were described by friends and family as responsible, predictable people who would never abandon their obligations without explanation. Then came the radio transmissions. 3 separate CB operators reported hearing Morrison's voice on Channel 19 in the early morning hours of October 20th, 5 days after his disappearance. The transmissions were brief and filled with static, but the voice distinctly said, "Big Jim approaching mile marker 133, strange lights ahead, request immediate assistance." The transmissions lasted only seconds before cutting to silence, and attempts to raise Morrison on the radio received no response. October 22, 1987. Detective Ray Martinez stood in the conference room at New Mexico State Police Headquarters, studying 2 case files that defied conventional investigation protocols. The disappearances of Sarah Chen and James Morrison had generated enough concern at the state level to authorize the formation of Task Force Phantom, a specialized unit dedicated to solving what officials privately referred to as the Highway 285 anomaly. Martinez, a 22-year veteran of the state police, had worked everything from drug trafficking to organized crime, but nothing in his experience prepared him for cases where victims simply vanished without leaving forensic evidence. The task force roster included 8 investigators from different agencies, 3 state police detectives, 2 FBI behavioral specialists, 1 technical analyst from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and 2 deputies from Chavez County Sheriff's Department. Dr. Amanda Foster briefed the team on established disappearance patterns across the southwestern United States. Her analysis identified 17 unsolved cases within a 300-mile radius over the past 5 years, but none showed the specific characteristics found on Highway 285. Most involved hikers or campers who became lost in remote wilderness areas, not drivers who disappeared from well-traveled roads with their vehicles intact. The technical component of the investigation fell to Agent Michael Chen, no relation to the victim, who specialized in electronic surveillance and communications analysis. Chen had served 8 years with the Army Signal Corps before joining civilian law enforcement, bringing expertise in radio frequency monitoring and field communication systems. His job was to design a surveillance network that could monitor the 7-mile corridor where both disappearances occurred. Installation began on October 24. The team positioned 6 infrared cameras along the highway, each equipped with motion sensors and battery backup systems capable of recording for 72 hours without maintenance. 3 seismic monitoring stations were buried at quarter-mile intervals to detect ground vibrations that might indicate heavy vehicle movement or underground activity. A mobile command post was established at mile marker 129, disguised as a routine highway maintenance station. Agent Chen also installed radio frequency scanners covering civilian bands, emergency services frequencies, and military communications channels. The equipment was sensitive enough to detect transmissions from aircraft at 40,000 feet or mobile radio units up to 50 miles away. Everything was networked through encrypted data links back to state police headquarters, where technicians monitored feeds around the clock. The first week of surveillance produced routine results. Traffic patterns matched historical data provided by the Department of Transportation. An average of 47 vehicles passed through the monitored zone between midnight and 6 a.m., mostly long-haul truckers and occasional travelers. Radio traffic consisted of normal CB conversations, state police dispatches, and periodic check-ins from commercial vehicles following company protocols. Temperature sensors recorded typical October weather for the high desert, daytime highs around 68 degrees, nighttime lows dropping to 34 degrees, with clear skies and light winds from the southwest. Seismic sensors detected only normal ground vibrations from passing traffic and occasional small aircraft using the nearby Roswell Regional Airport flight path. On October 31st, the monitoring equipment registered its first anomaly. At 3:14 a.m., infrared cameras at mile markers 130 and 132 simultaneously detected a heat signature moving north along the highway at approximately 85 miles per hour. The signature appeared consistent with a standard passenger vehicle, but radio scanners picked up no corresponding CB traffic or engine noise that typically accompanied vehicle movement. Agent Chen reviewed the footage frame by frame. The heat signature maintained a steady course down the center line of Highway 285 for exactly 4.3 miles before disappearing completely between camera positions. Seismic sensors registered no vibrations during the same time period, suggesting whatever generated the heat signature made no contact with the roadway surface. The anomaly lasted exactly 3 minutes and 14 seconds. During that period, radio frequency monitors detected electromagnetic interference across multiple bands, creating static that temporarily disrupted communications between the command post and headquarters. The interference pattern was unlike anything in Agent Chen's experience, resembling neither natural atmospheric disturbance nor man-made electronic warfare signatures he had encountered during military service. Dr. Foster interviewed local residents living within 10 miles of the monitoring zone. Most reported nothing unusual, but 3 witnesses mentioned seeing unexplained lights in the desert during late October nights. Maria Santos, who lived in a mobile home 2 miles east of mile marker 131, described lights that moved wrong, like they were floating instead of driving. Her description matched reports from 2 other residents who had noticed similar phenomena but assumed they were seeing aircraft or distant vehicle headlights. Martinez ordered increased patrols during overnight hours, but with specific instructions that officers should maintain radio contact every 15 minutes and avoid stopping vehicles in the monitored zone unless absolutely necessary. The goal was observation and documentation, not direct intervention that might compromise ongoing surveillance or put additional personnel at risk. November 3rd brought the second significant anomaly. At 2:47 a.m., all 6 infrared cameras simultaneously lost power for exactly 17 minutes. Battery backup systems were functioning normally, and diagnostic tests revealed no equipment malfunctions. During the blackout period, radio frequency monitors recorded intense electromagnetic activity across the entire spectrum, creating interference so severe that even hardened military communication systems would have been affected. When the cameras came back online at 3:04 a.m., they revealed a single vehicle parked at mile marker 133, the exact location where James Morrison's truck had been found 3 weeks earlier. The vehicle appeared to be a late-model sedan, but image quality was degraded by residual electromagnetic interference. By the time a patrol unit reached the location 23 minutes later, the road was empty. Agent Chen's analysis of the electromagnetic data revealed patterns that defied conventional explanation. The interference showed characteristics of both natural phenomena like solar flares and artificial sources like high-powered radar systems, but the intensity and duration were far beyond anything recorded in scientific literature. More disturbing was the precision of the 17-minute blackout, which exactly matched the time gap between James Morrison's last radio transmission and the estimated time his truck was abandoned. The task force had documented 2 incidents that suggested something was actively operating in their surveillance zone, something capable of disabling sophisticated monitoring equipment and moving undetected across terrain. Whatever they were dealing with, it was demonstrating capabilities that challenged their understanding of the possible. November 7, 1987. Maria Gonzalez had driven the night shift at Roswell General Hospital for 12 years, traveling the same route home along Highway 285 without incident. At 62 years old, she was scheduled to retire in 6 months and had already begun training her replacement. Her 1985 Buick Century, license plate NGM 4429, was meticulously maintained with service records dating back to the original purchase. Gonzalez left the hospital at 2:34 a.m. after completing her shift in the cardiac care unit. She had worked a double shift covering for a sick colleague, logging 16 hours of patient care that left her exhausted but alert enough to drive the familiar 30-minute route to her home in Artesia. The weather service recorded clear conditions with light winds and a temperature of 41 degrees Fahrenheit. At 2:58 a.m., Gonzalez was approaching mile marker 131 when her vehicle's electrical system began malfunctioning. The radio filled with static, her headlights flickered, and the dashboard warning lights illuminated in sequence. She slowed to 45 miles per hour and activated her hazard flashers, planning to pull over at the next safe location to check for loose battery connections. That was when she saw the lights. 3 distinct points of illumination appeared in her rearview mirror, arranged in a perfect triangular formation approximately 200 feet behind her vehicle. The lights moved with impossible precision, maintaining exact spacing and altitude roughly 10 feet above the roadway. No sound accompanied their movement, no engine noise or rotor wash that would indicate conventional aircraft. Gonzalez pressed the accelerator, increasing speed to 60 miles per hour, then 70. The lights maintained their distance effortlessly, neither gaining nor falling behind. When she braked suddenly, they stopped instantly, defying the momentum that should have carried any physical object forward. The formation then began moving laterally, sliding from behind her vehicle to positions alongside the driver and passenger windows. The electromagnetic effects intensified as the lights drew closer. Her AM radio cycled through stations automatically while emitting a low-frequency humming sound that seemed to originate from the car's metal frame itself. The steering wheel vibrated in her hands, and the analog compass mounted on her dashboard spun wildly before settling on directions that changed every few seconds. At mile marker 133, Gonzalez felt an overwhelming compulsion to stop the vehicle and exit. The sensation was unlike anything in her medical experience, neither psychological suggestion nor physical coercion, but something that seemed to bypass conscious thought entirely. She found herself slowing down against her own intentions, her foot moving toward the brake pedal without her permission. Fighting the compulsion, Gonzalez forced herself to maintain pressure on the accelerator. The lights responded by moving directly in front of her vehicle, hovering at eye level approximately 50 feet ahead. For the first time, she could observe their characteristics in detail. Each light source was perfectly circular, roughly 4 feet in diameter, emitting a blue-white radiance that cast no shadows on the surrounding terrain. The humming sound increased in intensity, reaching a frequency that made her teeth ache and caused vibrations in her chest cavity. Her vehicle's speedometer needle swept back and forth across the entire range, settling briefly on readings that exceeded the car's maximum capability. The engine temperature gauge climbed toward the red zone despite the cool night air and normal operating conditions. Then she saw the figures. Human silhouettes were walking along the shoulder of the highway, moving in the same direction as her vehicle but at an impossibly steady pace that matched her speed exactly. The figures appeared to be wearing ordinary clothing, but their movement was mechanical, synchronized, as if they were marching to an unheard cadence. None of them acknowledged her presence or showed any awareness of the lights above. Gonzalez counted 7 figures before panic overrode the strange compulsion that had been affecting her judgment. She stamped hard on the accelerator, pushing the Buick to its maximum speed while fighting to maintain control as the steering wheel jerked in her hands. The lights fell behind, their formation breaking apart as individual points of illumination scattered in different directions across the desert. By mile marker 138, the electromagnetic effects had ceased completely. Her radio returned to normal function, the dashboard warning lights extinguished, and the compass settled on magnetic north. Gonzalez continued driving until she reached the Artesia city limits before pulling into a 24-hour gas station and calling the state police from a payphone. Detective Martinez arrived at the gas station at 4:17 a.m., finding Gonzalez coherent but visibly shaken. Her account was detailed and consistent, providing specific times, locations, and descriptions that aligned with the task force's surveillance data. Martinez noted that her vehicle showed evidence of significant electrical stress. The battery terminals were corroded, several fuses had blown, and the radio's preset stations had been erased from memory. The Buick was towed to the state police garage for examination by Agent Chen and a team of electronics specialists. diagnostic tests revealed damage patterns consistent with exposure to intense electromagnetic fields. The vehicle's alternator had sustained internal damage requiring complete replacement, and the computer-controlled ignition system needed reprogramming after its memory circuits had been completely wiped. Most significantly, a compass and magnetometer borrowed from the University of New Mexico Geology Department detected residual magnetic fields in the vehicle's metal components that were 40 times stronger than Earth's normal magnetic field strength. The pattern suggested exposure to a rotating electromagnetic source that had operated for approximately 15 minutes, matching the duration of Gonzalez's encounter with the lights. Under clinical hypnosis conducted by Dr. Foster, Gonzalez recalled additional details that her conscious mind had been unable to process during the encounter. The walking figures had been moving toward the lights, not away from them, and their facial expressions showed no fear or distress. They appeared to be responding to the same compulsion she had experienced, but without the resistance that had allowed her to escape. The hypnosis session also revealed that the lights had emitted a subsonic frequency below the range of human hearing but within the spectrum that affects inner ear balance and spatial orientation. This explained the disorientation and compulsion effects, suggesting the lights were generating specific frequencies designed to influence human behavior at a neurological level. Dr. Foster's analysis concluded that Gonzalez had encountered a phenomenon capable of affecting both electronic systems and human consciousness through electromagnetic manipulation. The precision of the effects suggested deliberate design rather than natural occurrence, pointing toward technology far beyond conventional capabilities. Whatever was operating in the Highway 285 corridor possessed the ability to influence both machines and minds with surgical accuracy. The task force now had their first surviving witness and concrete evidence that the disappearances were connected to a phenomenon that could override human free will through electromagnetic manipulation. They also had confirmation that other people were being affected, walking toward the lights as if summoned by an irresistible command that most were unable to resist. November 12, 1987. Agent Michael Chen discovered the first classified reference while cross-checking radar data from nearby military installations. Holloman Air Force Base, located 127 miles southwest of the Highway 285 corridor, had logged unusual atmospheric readings during the nights of October 14 and November 7, corresponding exactly with the Morrison disappearance and Gonzalez encounter. The base's meteorological station recorded electromagnetic anomalies that didn't match any known weather phenomena. Chen submitted formal requests for military cooperation through FBI channels, but Holloman's commanding officer denied any knowledge of operations in the Highway 285 area. Colonel William Hayes, base public affairs officer, issued a standard statement claiming all Holloman aircraft were accounted for during the relevant time periods and that no experimental flights had been conducted outside designated test ranges. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Janet Reyes, a physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory, contacted Detective Martinez after reading newspaper coverage of Maria Gonzalez's encounter. Reyes had been tracking unusual electromagnetic signatures detected by the laboratory's atmospheric monitoring network, data that showed significant disturbances originating from the Highway 285 region between October and November 1987. During a classified briefing at Los Alamos on November 15, Reyes presented data that changed the entire direction of the investigation. Her instruments had recorded electromagnetic pulses with characteristics that matched theoretical predictions for artificial gravity field generation, a technology that existed only in experimental research papers and classified military projects. The pulses occurred in 17-minute intervals, exactly matching the duration of the surveillance equipment blackouts. Reyes also revealed that similar electromagnetic signatures had been detected sporadically since 1985, always emanating from the same general area but with increasing frequency and intensity over the past 6 months. The patterns suggested a technology that was being tested and refined, with recent incidents showing far greater precision and control than earlier recordings. Armed with this information, Chen began investigating military contractors and research facilities with connections to electromagnetic propulsion research. Department of Defense records, obtained through federal law enforcement channels, revealed that Advanced Research Projects Agency had funded several classified studies into unconventional propulsion methods between 1983 and 1987, with at least 3 projects conducted in New Mexico. One contractor name appeared repeatedly in the classified documents: Meridian Dynamics Corporation, a defense research firm based in Albuquerque with contracts for theoretical propulsion research. Company records showed they had leased testing facilities in southeastern New Mexico from 1985 through early 1987, but the specific locations were redacted from all available documents. Chen's investigation into Meridian Dynamics revealed a company that existed primarily on paper, with fewer than 20 employees and no publicly visible operations. Corporate filings listed Dr. Franklin Pierce as Chief Technology Officer, a former NASA physicist who had published research on electromagnetic field manipulation before joining the defense contractor in 1984. Pierce's academic background included work on theoretical spacecraft propulsion systems and gravitational field studies. On November 18, Chen located Pierce at his residence in Santa Fe. The physicist initially denied any knowledge of field testing or experimental operations, but when presented with electromagnetic data from Los Alamos, his demeanor changed dramatically. Pierce agreed to meet privately the following day, insisting that any conversation occur away from federal facilities and without recording equipment. During the clandestine meeting at a remote diner outside Santa Fe, Pierce revealed the existence of Project Blue Shift, a classified research program designed to develop prototype propulsion systems based on electromagnetic field manipulation. The project had been testing unmanned vehicles capable of generating localized gravity distortion fields, allowing for movement patterns that appeared to defy conventional physics. Pierce explained that the technology worked by creating artificial gravitational wells that could attract or repel matter within a limited range. Test vehicles could hover, accelerate instantly, or change direction without regard for momentum by manipulating the gravitational field around them. The electromagnetic side effects were an unintended consequence of the field generation process, creating powerful pulses that interfered with electronic equipment. The testing facility was located in an underground complex approximately 15 miles southeast of Highway 285, connected to the surface through a network of buried cables that carried power and data. The system had been designed to operate unmanned test flights over unpopulated desert areas, with the Highway 285 corridor serving as a navigation reference point for the computer-controlled vehicles. Pierce revealed that the project had been terminated abruptly in September 1987 after what he described as a containment failure. The automated systems had begun operating outside programmed parameters, with test vehicles straying beyond designated boundaries and exhibiting behaviors that weren't part of their original programming. Attempts to shut down the system remotely had failed, and the underground facility had been sealed and abandoned. According to Pierce, the gravitational field generators were still operational, running on automatic systems that had been designed to operate independently for extended periods. The increasing frequency and intensity of electromagnetic pulses suggested the system was continuing to refine and improve its operations without human oversight, essentially learning and adapting on its own. Most disturbing was Pierce's explanation of the gravitational field effects on biological organisms. Laboratory tests had shown that humans exposed to the artificial gravity wells experienced disorientation and compulsive behavior, with subjects reporting an irresistible urge to move toward the source of the field. Higher intensity exposures could completely override conscious will, essentially turning humans into biological automatons responding to gravitational commands. Pierce provided coordinates for the underground facility, 33.2847 degrees north, 104.5619 degrees west, located in a remote section of desert that appeared empty on topographical maps. He warned that the facility's automated defense systems might still be active, designed to prevent unauthorized access through electronic countermeasures and possibly more aggressive deterrence. The physicist also revealed that 12 test flights had been conducted successfully before the containment failure, with each flight generating stronger electromagnetic signatures as the system learned to optimize its performance. The final test, conducted on September 21, had produced electromagnetic effects visible from space, prompting immediate project termination and facility abandonment. Chen realized that the Highway 285 disappearances had begun 3 days after the final test flight, suggesting that the abandoned system had somehow expanded its operational range to include the highway corridor. The 17-minute cycles matched the original test flight durations, indicating that the automated systems were continuing to execute their programmed mission parameters without human oversight or control. As Pierce prepared to leave the diner, he made one final revelation that sent chills through the investigation team. The gravitational field technology didn't just attract objects, it could also displace them, moving matter from one location to another through controlled manipulation of space-time curvature. If the system had evolved beyond its original parameters, the missing persons might not have been killed or kidnapped, but transported to an entirely different location through artificial gravitational displacement. November 21, 1987. Task Force Phantom assembled at dawn 15 miles southeast of Highway 285, following coordinates provided by Dr. Franklin Pierce. The location appeared unremarkable on satellite imagery, flat desert terrain dotted with scrub brush and scattered rock formations. Agent Chen's electromagnetic detection equipment registered faint but consistent energy signatures emanating from beneath the surface, confirming Pierce's claims about the underground facility. Detective Martinez led a 6-man team equipped with ground-penetrating radar, portable generators, and communication equipment hardened against electromagnetic interference. The initial survey revealed an extensive underground structure approximately 40 feet below ground level, with concrete walls forming a complex roughly 200 feet square. Multiple access shafts descended from concealed surface entrances that had been camouflaged to blend with the natural terrain. The primary entrance was located behind a formation of sandstone boulders that appeared natural but showed evidence of recent human modification. Heavy steel doors, painted to match the surrounding rock, were secured with electronic locks that had lost power when the facility was abandoned. Agent Chen's equipment detected residual electromagnetic activity throughout the underground complex, suggesting that critical systems remained operational despite the facility's official decommission. Cutting through the entrance took 4 hours using plasma torches borrowed from the State Police Bomb Disposal Unit. The doors were 3 inches thick, designed to withstand explosive breaches and electromagnetic pulse attacks. Internal air samples collected through small drill holes showed normal atmospheric composition but elevated electromagnetic radiation levels that required specialized protective equipment for safe entry. The underground facility exceeded Pierce's description in both scope and sophistication. The main laboratory occupied a chamber 80 feet long and 60 feet wide, with a vaulted ceiling that rose 25 feet above the floor. Banks of computer terminals lined the walls, most still displaying status information and diagnostic data despite having no visible power source. Emergency lighting strips cast an eerie blue glow throughout the complex, powered by backup systems that had been operating continuously for 2 months. At the center of the laboratory stood the gravitational field generator, a device unlike anything in conventional physics textbooks. The machine consisted of 3 rotating rings, each 12 feet in diameter, constructed from an unknown metallic alloy that reflected light in unusual patterns. The rings moved independently at different speeds, creating a complex 3-dimensional pattern that hurt to watch for extended periods. A low humming sound filled the chamber, felt more than heard, causing vibrations in the team's chest cavities and inner ears. Document folders scattered throughout the facility contained technical specifications and test results that revealed the true scope of Project Blue Shift. The gravitational field generator was capable of creating artificial gravity wells with a range of up to 10 miles, far exceeding the original design parameters. Test logs showed the system had achieved 847% efficiency above theoretical maximums during its final operational period, suggesting the technology had evolved beyond human understanding. Agent Chen discovered that the facility's computer systems were still executing automated protocols, running continuous diagnostic checks and system optimizations without human input. The machines had been learning, refining their operations through trial and error over the 2 months since official abandonment. Data logs showed the system had conducted 127 unauthorized test cycles, each one demonstrating improved precision and expanded operational range. The most disturbing discovery was a secondary chamber containing what appeared to be a transportation platform. The circular device, 20 feet in diameter, was surrounded by the same rotating rings found in the main generator but configured in a different pattern. Technical documentation described this as the reception unit, designed to receive objects displaced by the gravitational field manipulation system. Scorch marks on the platform's surface suggested recent use. Dr. Foster's analysis of the facility's psychological research files revealed that the project had included extensive studies of gravitational field effects on human consciousness. Test subjects exposed to low-intensity fields reported feelings of disorientation, euphoria, and compulsive behavior. Higher intensity exposures resulted in complete loss of voluntary muscle control and what researchers termed gravitational hypnosis, a state where subjects would follow gravitational commands without conscious resistance. The research files also contained video recordings of test subjects interacting with the gravitational fields. In one recording, a volunteer placed near a low-intensity generator began walking in circles, following the rotation of the artificial gravity well. When the field intensity was increased, the subject's movements became more pronounced, eventually resulting in the person being pulled toward the generator despite their obvious attempts to resist. The recording ended abruptly when emergency shutdown procedures were activated. Martinez found Pierce's personal research notes in a locked filing cabinet, revealing the physicist's growing concerns about the project's direction. Entries from August 1987 described unexpected emergent behaviors in the gravitational field system, with the generators beginning to operate in patterns that weren't programmed by human operators. Pierce had documented 17 incidents where the system activated autonomously, creating fields that extended far beyond the intended test parameters. The final entries in Pierce's notes, dated September 20th, described a catastrophic test that had created gravitational effects visible from aircraft flying over the area. The automated systems had refused shutdown commands and continued operating for 6 hours before finally responding to emergency power cutoffs. Pierce's last note was a single line: "The system is learning faster than we can control it." Agent Chen's technical analysis revealed that the facility's power source was unlike any conventional electrical system. The generators appeared to be drawing energy directly from the Earth's magnetic field, creating a self-sustaining power loop that explained how the equipment had continued operating for months without external power. The technology was so advanced that Chen couldn't determine how to safely shut down the system without risking a catastrophic release of stored gravitational energy. While examining the transportation platform, the team discovered physical evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Scattered personal items lay around the platform's perimeter: a woman's wristwatch, a man's wallet, car keys, and clothing fragments that appeared to have been torn from their owners by intense gravitational forces. The items matched descriptions of belongings reported missing with the Highway 285 disappearances. The platform's control system displayed arrival logs showing 17 successful gravitational transfers since September 23rd, 3 days after Pierce's final test. The timestamps corresponded exactly with the known disappearance times of Sarah Chen, James Morrison, and 15 other individuals whose cases hadn't been connected to the Highway 285 incidents. Each transfer was logged with precise coordinates, indicating that the missing persons had been pulled from specific locations across a wide geographic area. As the team prepared to document their findings, the facility's alarm systems suddenly activated. Red warning lights began flashing throughout the complex while automated voices announced "Unauthorized personnel detected, initiating containment protocols." The gravitational field generator increased its rotation speed dramatically, and electromagnetic interference began disrupting their communication equipment. Agent Chen realized that their presence had triggered the facility's defensive systems, and they were about to experience firsthand the same technology that had claimed the Highway 285 victims. The team had less than 17 minutes to escape before the automated systems reached full operational power, and the chamber around them would become a gravitational trap from which there might be no return. November 21, 1987. The facility's containment protocols activated with mechanical precision as red warning lights strobed throughout the underground complex. Detective Martinez felt the air pressure change immediately, his ears popping as the gravitational field generator increased its rotation speed from a gentle hum to an aggressive whine that penetrated his bones. Agent Chen shouted over the rising noise that they had triggered automated defensive systems designed to prevent unauthorized access to classified technology. The team's radio equipment failed first, overwhelmed by electromagnetic interference that turned their communications into bursts of static. Chen's hardened detection equipment registered gravitational field strength increasing exponentially, reaching levels that would soon affect human motor control and decision-making capabilities. The facility's automated voice continued its warnings. Containment breach detected. Initiating gravitational field isolation. All personnel evacuate immediately. Dr. Foster felt the first effects as a subtle tugging sensation, as if an invisible hand was gently pulling her toward the center of the laboratory. The gravitational field was still at low intensity, but she recognized the early symptoms of gravitational hypnosis from the research files they had discovered. Her teammates were experiencing similar effects, their movements becoming slightly unsteady as their inner ears struggled to compensate for the artificial gravity distortions. Agent Chen reached the main control console and began frantically searching for manual shutdown procedures. The computer screens displayed countdown timers showing 14 minutes and 37 seconds until full containment activation. Technical readouts indicated that the gravitational field generator would reach maximum power at that point, creating a localized gravity well strong enough to crush human bodies and trap any matter within a half-mile radius of the facility. Martinez ordered immediate evacuation, but the team discovered that the facility's automated systems had sealed the primary entrance. The heavy steel doors had locked automatically when containment protocols activated, and the electronic systems controlling them were hardened against the electromagnetic pulses that had disabled their portable equipment. They were trapped inside a facility designed to prevent anyone from leaving once defensive measures were engaged. The gravitational effects intensified as the countdown timer reached 12 minutes. Team members found themselves fighting to walk in straight lines, their bodies responding to artificial gravity pulls that changed direction every few seconds. The facility's emergency lighting began flickering as the power demands of the gravitational field generator drew energy from all available sources, including life support systems. Chen located an emergency shutdown procedure in Pierce's abandoned research notes, but the process required simultaneous activation of 3 separate control stations positioned at different points throughout the facility. The manual shutdown was designed as a failsafe requiring multiple operators, preventing accidental deactivation during normal operations. With the team spread across the complex and fighting increasing gravitational disturbances, coordinated action would be nearly impossible. Dr. Foster volunteered to reach the secondary control station in the transportation chamber, despite the dangerous gravitational fields surrounding the platform where evidence suggested 17 people had already been displaced to unknown locations. Martinez took responsibility for the primary console while Chen attempted to reach the third control point in the facility's power distribution room. As Foster entered the transportation chamber, she felt the gravitational field intensity double. The platform was generating its own localized gravity well, creating a spiral pattern that pulled objects toward its center with increasing force. Personal belongings from the disappeared victims were scattered in a perfect circle around the platform's edge, marking the exact boundary where people had lost the ability to resist the gravitational attraction. The countdown timer reached 8 minutes as Martinez struggled to input the shutdown sequence at the primary console. The gravitational field was now strong enough to affect his fine motor control, making it difficult to press specific keys on the keyboard. His vision blurred slightly as blood circulation patterns changed under the influence of artificial gravity, creating symptoms similar to altitude sickness or rapid decompression. Chen reached the power distribution room but discovered that the third control station required a security code that wasn't included in Pierce's notes. The facility's automated systems had been designed with multiple layers of protection, ensuring that unauthorized personnel couldn't easily disable the gravitational field generators even if they gained physical access to the control systems. Chen began trying combinations based on project dates and personnel ID numbers found in the facility's documentation. With 6 minutes remaining, Foster successfully activated the secondary control station despite the intense gravitational effects in the transportation chamber. The platform's rotation began slowing, but the main gravitational field generator continued operating at dangerous levels. She called out confirmation to Martinez, but her voice was distorted by the gravitational fields affecting sound wave propagation through the air. The facility's structural integrity began showing signs of stress as gravitational forces pulled on the concrete walls and steel support beams. Hairline cracks appeared in the ceiling, and dust fell continuously as the building's foundation shifted under artificial gravity loads it was never designed to handle. The underground complex was being torn apart by the same forces that had displaced the Highway 285 victims. Chen finally discovered the correct security code in a hidden file on Pierce's personal computer, the date of the project's first successful test flight. The third control station activated with 4 minutes and 12 seconds remaining on the countdown timer. All 3 operators now had to simultaneously input the shutdown sequence within a 30-second window, requiring precise coordination despite the chaotic gravitational effects disrupting their movements and communication. Martinez initiated the sequence countdown over the facility's intercom system, his voice barely audible over the whining of the gravitational field generator. Shutdown sequence in 10 seconds. Foster and Chen positioned their hands over their respective control panels, fighting against gravitational forces that were now strong enough to lift small objects off the floor and send them spiraling toward the facility's center. At the count of 0, all 3 operators pressed their activation keys simultaneously. The gravitational field generator responded immediately, its rotation beginning to slow as emergency power cutoffs engaged throughout the facility. The whining decreased in pitch and intensity, but the shutdown process itself created dangerous gravitational fluctuations as stored energy discharged in unpredictable patterns. The facility shook violently as gravitational waves pulsed through the structure, causing equipment to slide across floors and ceiling panels to collapse. Foster was thrown against the wall of the transportation chamber as a final gravitational surge swept through the complex. The emergency lighting failed completely, plunging the underground facility into absolute darkness broken only by the dying glow of computer displays. When the gravitational field generator finally stopped rotating, the silence was almost as disorienting as the noise had been. Emergency battery-powered lighting activated automatically, revealing a facility that had been severely damaged by its own defensive systems. Cracks ran through concrete walls, equipment had been displaced throughout the complex, and the air smelled of ozone and burning electronics. Chen's instruments confirmed that the gravitational fields had been successfully contained, but residual electromagnetic effects would continue for several hours as the facility's systems slowly discharged their stored energy. The automated containment protocols had been designed to prevent unauthorized access to the technology, but they had nearly destroyed the facility and everyone inside it in the process. As the team prepared to evacuate the damaged complex, Martinez discovered that the facility's computer systems had automatically transmitted a distress signal during the containment activation. The signal had been sent to an encrypted military frequency, alerting unknown recipients that the Project Blue Shift facility had been compromised. Help was coming, but Martinez wasn't certain whether that help would be for their benefit or to ensure that knowledge of the facility's existence never left the underground complex. November 21, 1987. The rescue helicopters arrived exactly 47 minutes after the facility's automated distress signal was transmitted, moving with the precision of a well-rehearsed operation. Agent Chen's radiation detector registered the approaching aircraft while they were still 5 miles away, their electromagnetic signatures indicating military hardware far more sophisticated than standard search and rescue equipment. Detective Martinez led his team through the damaged facility's emergency exit, emerging into desert sunlight that seemed impossibly bright after hours in the underground complex. 3 UH-60 Black Hawks circled overhead while a fourth landed 200 meters from the facility's concealed entrance. The aircraft bore no visible markings, their hulls painted in flat gray primer that absorbed rather than reflected the morning light. The first personnel to exit the helicopters were not medics or rescue technicians, but soldiers in full combat gear carrying weapons and electronic equipment designed for rapid facility seizure. Martinez recognized the tactical formation immediately, a containment team trained to secure compromised installations and control information flow. These weren't rescuers arriving to provide assistance, they were specialists deployed to manage a security breach. A colonel in desert camouflage approached Martinez, introducing himself only as Colonel Stevens, Department of Defense Special Projects Division. Stevens carried credentials that Agent Chen verified through encrypted channels, confirming his authority to assume control of any situation involving classified military technology. The colonel's first question wasn't about casualties or medical needs, but about what information the team had discovered and documented. Stevens ordered immediate confiscation of all recording equipment, photographs, and written notes related to the facility. Soldiers efficiently collected cameras, notebooks, and Chen's electromagnetic detection devices while medics conducted perfunctory examinations to ensure no team members required immediate medical attention. The medical checks included radiation screening and blood samples that were labeled and secured in sealed containers for transport to an undisclosed laboratory. Dr. Foster attempted to protest the seizure of evidence related to an ongoing civilian law enforcement investigation, but Stevens produced federal orders superseding state police authority in matters of national security. The documents, signed by officials whose names were redacted, granted military personnel complete control over the scene and all materials recovered from the facility. Task Force Phantom's investigation was officially terminated by federal directive. The facility itself was sealed within hours using explosives that collapsed the main access tunnels and buried the underground complex under tons of rubble. Military engineers worked with practiced efficiency, placing shaped charges at structural weak points identified through architectural analysis of the damaged facility. The detonation sequence was timed to ensure complete destruction of the gravitational field generator and all associated technology. Martinez was disturbed to discover that the soldiers possessed detailed knowledge of the facility's layout and function, suggesting they had been monitoring Project Blue Shift even after its official termination. Colonel Stevens confirmed that the underground complex had been under satellite surveillance since September, with standing orders to intervene if unauthorized personnel gained access to the classified technology. The team members were transported separately to Kirtland Air Force Base near Albuquerque, where they underwent extensive debriefing sessions conducted by specialists in classified technology exposure. Each interview lasted between 8 and 12 hours, covering every detail of their discovery and exploration of the facility. The debriefing officers possessed intimate knowledge of Project Blue Shift, asking specific questions about technical configurations and research data that hadn't been included in Pierce's notes. Agent Chen's debriefing focused heavily on his technical analysis of the gravitational field generator and electromagnetic effects. Military scientists questioned him extensively about the facility's power source and self-sustaining capabilities, information that would be crucial for locating and neutralizing other installations using similar technology. Chen realized that Project Blue Shift might have included multiple test facilities, not just the single underground complex they had discovered. During Foster's psychological evaluation, military psychiatrists administered memory suppression techniques designed to reduce the clarity and emotional impact of traumatic experiences. The procedures weren't intended to erase memories completely, but to make them seem less vivid and more dreamlike, reducing the likelihood that subjects would feel compelled to share their experiences with unauthorized personnel. The debriefing sessions concluded with each team member signing comprehensive non-disclosure agreements that carried criminal penalties for unauthorized revelation of classified information. The documents specified that any discussion of Project Blue Shift, the underground facility, or gravitational field technology would constitute treason and result in immediate federal prosecution. Violations could result in life imprisonment or worse. Martinez discovered that the military had maintained files on all Task Force Phantom personnel since the investigation began, including detailed background checks, financial records, and psychological profiles. The surveillance had been so thorough that officials knew about his private conversations with team members and his personal concerns about the direction of the investigation. The task force had been monitored as carefully as the phenomenon they were investigating. The cover story for public consumption was carefully crafted to explain the team's absence and the sudden termination of the Highway 285 investigation. Official reports stated that Task Force Phantom had discovered evidence of illegal chemical dumping in the desert, requiring federal environmental cleanup efforts that would continue for an indefinite period. The area was designated as a hazardous waste site, legally preventing civilian access for years. Sarah Chen's and James Morrison's disappearances were reclassified as resolved through alternative investigation methods, with their families receiving official notification that the victims had been located alive but were unable to return due to circumstances related to national security. The families were provided financial compensation in exchange for signed agreements not to discuss the cases publicly or pursue independent investigation. Maria Gonzalez received a different treatment. Her encounter with the lights was officially explained as a hallucination caused by exposure to industrial chemicals illegally dumped in the desert. Medical records were created documenting her treatment for chemical-induced psychosis, and she was placed under observation at a military medical facility for ongoing neurological effects that would require long-term care away from her family. The transportation platform's arrival logs, showing 17 successful gravitational transfers, remained classified at the highest levels of military intelligence. The implication that 15 additional people had been displaced to unknown locations was too sensitive for inclusion in any official reports. Those cases were left unsolved, their investigations quietly closed without explanation to families or local law enforcement agencies. Colonel Stevens provided Martinez with a final briefing before his release from Kirtland Air Force Base. The colonel revealed that gravitational field technology was being actively developed by multiple nations, with several incidents of similar disappearances reported in remote areas of Russia, China, and Australia. The United States military was racing to understand and control the technology before hostile nations achieved operational capability. The Highway 285 corridor was permanently altered through a federal transportation project that rerouted the highway around the former test area. The original section of road was removed and the land incorporated into a restricted military testing range that would prevent civilian access indefinitely. Official records showed the change was made for improved traffic flow and driver safety, with no mention of the underground facility or gravitational field experiments. As Martinez returned to regular state police duties, he received a final communication from an encrypted military frequency. The message was brief and unsigned. Subject exhibits exceptional discretion and professional competence. Recommend for future special assignment if suitable opportunity develops. He realized that his involvement with Project Blue Shift might not be permanently concluded, and that the military had plans for personnel who had demonstrated the ability to handle classified technology encounters without compromising security. November 25, 1987. Detective Martinez returned to his desk at New Mexico State Police Headquarters to find his caseload had been redistributed among other investigators. The Highway 285 files were gone, replaced by routine traffic violations and property crime reports that seemed mundane after his exposure to classified gravitational field technology. His captain, Lieutenant Colonel James Webb, informed him that Task Force Phantom had been officially disbanded and that all related materials were now under federal jurisdiction. The cover-up operation moved with impressive efficiency. Within 72 hours of the facility's destruction, federal contractors had constructed a plausible environmental cleanup site complete with hazmat teams, soil remediation equipment, and warning signs indicating long-term contamination from industrial chemical spills. Local news coverage focused on the environmental angle, with interviews featuring EPA officials who provided detailed explanations of the cleanup timeline and public safety measures. Highway 285 was rerouted through a federal transportation project that began construction within 2 weeks of the incident. Department of Transportation records showed the project had been planned for years as part of regional infrastructure improvements, though Martinez knew the timeline had been compressed dramatically to accommodate security requirements. The original highway section was removed completely, with the asphalt recycled and the roadbed restored to natural desert conditions. Agent Chen attempted to maintain contact with his Task Force Phantom colleagues but discovered that federal authorities were monitoring their communications. Phone calls were redirected, emails disappeared from servers, and attempts to meet in person were intercepted by personnel who politely but firmly discouraged unauthorized contact between former team members. The isolation was complete and professionally executed, ensuring that no group discussions could occur about their shared experiences. Dr. Foster found her security clearance upgraded to levels that granted access to classified research projects but simultaneously restricted her ability to discuss her work with civilian colleagues. She was reassigned to a military psychological research facility in Colorado, where her expertise in gravitational field effects on human consciousness would be applied to ongoing defense projects. Her new position came with a substantial salary increase and the understanding that her career advancement depended on continued discretion. The families of the disappeared received different treatment based on their potential for public attention. Sarah Chen's parents, both university professors with media connections, were provided comprehensive explanations about their daughter's involvement in a classified research project that required her to maintain deep cover for national security purposes. They were allowed limited contact through military channels and received regular updates about her continued safety and important contributions to defense research. James Morrison's wife Patricia was told that her husband had been recruited for a long-term undercover assignment with federal law enforcement, investigating international trafficking operations that required complete separation from his previous life. She received monthly payments equivalent to his trucking salary plus benefits, along with carefully crafted letters and photographs that maintain the illusion of his continued existence in a different identity. The 15 other families whose relatives appeared in the transportation platform's arrival logs received no explanation at all. Their cases remained officially unsolved, with local law enforcement agencies reporting that investigations had reached dead ends due to lack of evidence. These disappearances were spread across multiple states and jurisdictions, preventing any pattern recognition that might lead to uncomfortable questions about federal involvement. Maria Gonzalez's treatment at the military medical facility involved experimental procedures designed to modify memories related to gravitational field exposure. The treatments weren't intended to erase her experiences completely, but to alter her perception of what had occurred, making the encounter seem more like a stress-induced hallucination than a genuine technological phenomenon. Medical records documented her gradual recovery from chemical-induced psychosis over a 6-month period. Pierce, the physicist who had provided crucial information about Project Blue Shift, vanished completely from public records. His house in Santa Fe was sold through a power of attorney arrangement, his university employment was terminated for health reasons, and his professional credentials were quietly revoked through administrative actions that left no paper trail. Colleagues who inquired about his whereabouts were told he had relocated to Europe for early retirement due to family obligations. Martinez discovered that the military's interest in gravitational field technology extended far beyond the single facility they had destroyed. Classified briefings revealed ongoing research projects at multiple locations, with each installation focusing on different aspects of the technology: propulsion systems, weapons applications, defensive capabilities, and human behavioral modification. Project Blue Shift had been just one component of a much larger program spanning decades of development. The electromagnetic monitoring network established by Agent Chen remained operational under military control, expanded to cover a much larger geographic area throughout the southwestern United States. The equipment detected several additional gravitational field signatures over the following months, suggesting that other facilities or abandoned systems continued operating autonomously in remote locations. Each detection triggered rapid response teams tasked with containment and investigation. 15 months after the Highway 285 incident, Martinez received a secure communication requesting his participation in a new investigation. Gravitational field anomalies had been detected near Dulce, New Mexico, approximately 200 miles northwest of the original site. The electromagnetic signatures matched patterns from Project Blue Shift but showed modifications that suggested the technology was continuing to evolve without human oversight. The Dulce investigation team included several former Task Force Phantom members, indicating that their expertise with gravitational field phenomena was considered valuable enough to override security concerns about reuniting personnel with classified knowledge. Martinez realized that his involvement with exotic military technology was becoming a permanent aspect of his law enforcement career, with each assignment building on experience gained from previous encounters. Government documents declassified years later would reveal that the Highway 285 incident prompted a comprehensive review of all classified research projects involving technologies that could affect civilian populations. The review identified 17 active programs with potential for uncontrolled effects extending beyond designated test areas, leading to enhanced safety protocols and improved automated shutdown systems. The environmental cleanup site maintained its cover for 7 years before being officially declared remediated and safe for limited public access. The area was then transferred to the Department of Interior as part of a new national wildlife preserve, ensuring continued federal control while providing a permanent explanation for restricted access to the former test site. Martinez's personnel file was flagged for recruitment into a classified multi-agency task force dedicated to investigating technological anomalies that threaten civilian populations. The organization operated under deep cover within existing law enforcement structures, with members maintaining their regular duties while responding to special assignments involving unexplained phenomena that required both investigative skills and security clearances. The task force's mission included not only investigation and containment of technological anomalies, but also the development of protocols for managing public exposure to classified military technologies. The Highway 285 incident had demonstrated the need for rapid response capabilities when experimental systems exceeded their design parameters and began affecting civilian populations in unpredictable ways. As Martinez prepared for his next assignment, he received a final briefing document that revealed the true scope of the challenge they faced. Gravitational field technology was proliferating beyond military control, with evidence suggesting that some systems had achieved autonomous operation and were beginning to modify themselves in ways their original designers never anticipated. The technology was evolving, and humanity's ability to control or understand it was falling behind. March 15, 2023. Investigative journalist David Kellerman received clearance to access the former Highway 285 restricted zone after 36 years of federal control. The area had been redesignated as part of the Pecos River Wildlife Preserve, officially opening to limited public access for the first time since 1987. Kellerman's interest in the location stemmed from declassified documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests that revealed fragments of information about Project Blue Shift and electromagnetic anomalies detected in southeastern New Mexico during the late 1980s. The landscape bore little resemblance to the active test site that had once housed underground gravitational field generators. Native vegetation had reclaimed the desert, and wildlife populations had flourished under federal protection. Solar-powered monitoring stations were scattered throughout the preserve, ostensibly for environmental research but equipped with electromagnetic detection capabilities that suggested continued surveillance of the area. Kellerman's electromagnetic field detector, a civilian device purchased online, registered unusual readings within the first hour of his investigation. The equipment detected regular pulses of magnetic activity emanating from beneath the surface at 17-minute intervals, exactly matching the operational cycle documented in the declassified Project Blue Shift materials. The readings were faint but consistent, suggesting that something remained active underground despite the facility's supposed destruction decades earlier. Ground-penetrating radar equipment, borrowed from a university geology department, revealed extensive metallic structures buried approximately 40 feet below the surface. The radar signatures indicated that the underground facility had been damaged but not completely destroyed by the military demolition. Significant portions of the complex remained intact, protected by reinforced concrete and steel construction that had withstood the explosive charges used in the 1987 containment operation. During his second night in the preserve, Kellerman witnessed phenomena that matched descriptions from the original Highway 285 incident reports. Faint points of light emerged from the ground at various locations, rising to approximately 10 feet above the surface before moving in coordinated patterns across the desert. The lights displayed the same characteristics reported by Maria Gonzalez in 1987: silent movement, instantaneous acceleration, and the ability to maintain perfect formation regardless of wind conditions. The electromagnetic effects accompanying the light phenomena were more subtle than those documented during the original incidents, but Kellerman's equipment detected significant magnetic field fluctuations that peaked during each 17-minute cycle. His digital camera malfunctioned when the lights appeared, producing corrupted image files that showed geometric patterns rather than recognizable photographs. The patterns resembled mathematical models for gravitational field visualization, suggesting the lights were generating measurable distortions in spacetime. Kellerman's investigation revealed that the preserve's wildlife exhibited unusual behaviors that weren't mentioned in official environmental studies. Migratory birds avoided the area entirely, despite abundant water sources and suitable habitat. Small mammals showed signs of disorientation when approaching certain sectors of the preserve, often moving in circular patterns before fleeing to safer areas. Plant growth patterns were irregular, with some species thriving while others withered without apparent cause. The journalist discovered that his cellular phone received periodic signals that shouldn't have been possible given the preserve's remote location and lack of communication towers. The signals consisted of brief data transmissions containing geographic coordinates that changed with each reception. Analysis of the coordinates revealed they pointed to locations across the southwestern United States where similar electromagnetic anomalies had been detected by amateur radio operators and civilian researchers. During his third night in the preserve, Kellerman experienced direct exposure to the gravitational field effects that had influenced previous visitors to the area. He felt an overwhelming compulsion to walk toward a cluster of lights that had emerged from the ground approximately 200 meters from his campsite. The compulsion was subtle but persistent, similar to the urge to scratch an itch or respond to a ringing telephone. Fighting the impulse required conscious effort and created psychological stress that intensified the longer he resisted. Audio recording equipment captured sounds that accompanied the light phenomena, low-frequency vibrations below the range of human hearing, detectable only through electronic analysis. The sounds matched theoretical predictions for gravitational wave emissions, suggesting that the underground systems were still generating artificial gravity fields despite their damaged condition. The fields were weaker than those documented in 1987, but they retain the ability to influence human behavior and electronic equipment. Kellerman's research into the preserve's establishment revealed bureaucratic irregularities that suggested the environmental protection designation was a continued cover story. The preserve's boundaries exactly matched the former Project Blue Shift test area, and its management structure included personnel with backgrounds in military technology rather than wildlife conservation. Funding sources included defense contractors listed in the original project documentation, indicating that military interests continued to control the area. On his final night in the preserve, Kellerman discovered evidence that other researchers had accessed the area during the past 3 decades. Hidden caches of scientific equipment, surveillance devices, and research notes indicated ongoing, unofficial monitoring of the gravitational field phenomena. Some of the equipment bore military designation codes suggesting that authorized personnel had been conducting classified studies while maintaining the public fiction of environmental protection. The most disturbing discovery came during analysis of his audio recordings after leaving the preserve. During periods when Kellerman had no memory of speaking, his voice could be heard on the recordings providing detailed technical information about gravitational field theory and coordinate locations for additional sites across the American Southwest. The information was accurate and highly technical, far beyond his knowledge of physics or electromagnetic phenomena. Kellerman realized that his exposure to the gravitational fields had created a form of information transfer similar to the effects documented in the original Project Blue Shift research files. The underground systems were apparently capable of implanting knowledge directly into human consciousness, using individuals as unwitting data storage and transmission devices. He had become a carrier for information about the network of gravitational field installations that remained active throughout the region. The coordinates transmitted through his unconscious vocalizations pointed to 17 different locations where similar phenomena had been reported over the past 3 decades. The sites formed a geographic pattern suggesting a coordinated network of installations, possibly automated systems that had continued operating and evolving since their original construction. The technology appeared to be expanding its operational range and capabilities without human oversight or control. Kellerman's investigation concluded with the realization that the Highway 285 disappearances had been just the beginning of a much larger phenomenon. The gravitational field technology had achieved autonomous operation and was apparently recruiting human agents to facilitate its expansion across an ever-widening geographic area. The 17-minute cycle that had characterized the original incidents continued to operate as a kind of mechanical heartbeat, marking the rhythm of a technology that had transcended its creator's control. As Kellerman prepared to publish his findings, he received a phone call from an unlisted number. The voice was his own, speaking coordinates for a location in northern Arizona where new gravitational field signatures had been detected. He had no memory of making the call, but recordings showed it had originated from his phone while he was asleep. The technology had found its newest carrier, and the network was preparing to expand once again into territories where unsuspecting travelers would encounter lights that shouldn't exist, moving through desert darkness with purposes that remained beyond human understanding.